before we get started, once again, we want for today to be very interactive. I'll have a couple of questions that we'll ask. And remember, these questions are going to be really helpful so that we can we want to ensure that that once again, we're providing real data that is showcasing like how are you responding to these questions versus others. So the purpose of today is not necessarily meant to be that of a one-way feedback. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Of course, today we're talking about the very important topic of social media and its significance. So, and I will say this, and I will not reference this individual by name, but I did receive in advance of this, an individual had, referenced the fact that let me not book for this. So I'll just read this, what it is that he shared with me. He said, never been into social marketing, hoping to learn some of the basics. What I have done in the past is not working today. So with that said, in terms of today, we are going to have a lot of foundational things, but we also are going to get into some intermediate and some advanced things as well. And my goal for each and every single one of you, it is to have at least one or two takeaways, and also to inspire to have social media marketing to be a part of your overall marketing mix. Social media in and of itself is not meant to be the end all be all, if that, if that makes sense. It's meant to be a piece of the overall puzzle because, keep in mind, it's all of these things together, all of the marketing things. I won't go through the entire list, but all the various marketing channels are meant to really help be force multipliers with each other. So really quickly, I won't spend too much time on this, but I'll just share with you really quickly just a little bit about ourselves. We are a marketing agency. We only work with the security industry. We only work with dealers, with integrators, with individuals that provide hardware and services to that of the channel, i.e. on the vendor side. We're very, very proud members of the following organizations. Everything we do is all about R&D with security and with marketing. If any of you would like to learn more about how we can help, or if you'd like to have us analyze that of your marketing, we'd love to have a conversation. There's no obligation. Hopefully all of you that have been on these webinars and that know me well, this is me being really pushy. So if you're okay with that style, we'd love to have a conversation. And I believe Paul, our Director of Business Development, is on today as well. So, between Paul and I, we'd love to have these conversations with you. And just really quickly, a little bit about myself. For those of you that don't know me, I've been very blessed and honored to speak at many of our industry's biggest events. And I'm not going to list through all of them. I will say since January of 2014, we've had the honor and the privilege of co-authoring Marketing Mad Men. Within that of SDM Magazine, our very first article was all about purple cow theory. Challenge you to take a look at that. It's from January of 2014. I can't believe it's already been 10 years plus. If we are not connected on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. If we are connected, let's keep this conversation going. So this QR code will take you there. But once again, enough about me and about us, because today is all about you. So before we get to that of the agenda, this is where, once again, I really like to see as to whether we can have an interactive discussion, and I'm going to actually participate in this as well. So I'd like for each of you to quickly go through that of, pull out pull out that of your phone. And if you can answer this question, what social media platform do you find the most effective to your business? And I will answer this one as well. And, this is between that of LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, which is formerly Twitter, and then other. And if it's other, if you can specify in the chat, once again, it would be really helpful if each of us can participate, because the goal here is as we participate, and let me just make sure in the chat, everyone, yes, I think everyone can see me and hear me still. So the reason why this is important and these questions are important is because I'd like for this is not just for us, this is for each of us to really understand where are our peers relative to ourselves in terms of some of the social platforms. To me, it's not surprising that we're seeing mostly LinkedIn here. We'll keep this up for another 5-10 seconds or so. I will say this, I will say this, that it is really, really important to make sure that you are leveraging all of the channels that your audience is in. And let's just see here. Give me just a sec here. Okay, so It's maybe hard to see because my camera is smaller, but Lori says uh, it won't let me click the other, but use TikTok. Well, I appreciate that, and sorry for once again the technical challenges here, but yeah, TikTok. Once again, it's all a matter of being where your customers are. So keep these things in mind. We'll go to the next question really quickly, and we'll continue moving forward. And this one here is, once again, let me scoot this over here. So, how confident are you in your current social media strategy? And if you'll see here, I love this, and I appreciate the team that helped to put this together in terms of, instead of having it scored 1 through 5, I love this. Let's score it through an emoji, and I'm gonna address this one as well. And by the way, for those of you that know me well, you know what one of my most favorite social media emojis is, and that's a clue as to how I voted. But we'll give this another moment. But this is interesting to see as to how this is going as we're walking through this. So we'll give this another 5-7 seconds. And I really appreciate everyone engaging with us, because this is really going to be helpful. Yeah, Lori, I'm seeing your note. What you may want to do is either refresh the page in your Slido, or you can go to slido.com as well and enter this number here, the 3194, and you can address those. But yeah, I mean, look, the reality is we all have a long ways to go. And, our goal is to, how do we shift towards this area here? And that's why today is really important. And by the way, it's not just about us. It's about what's referred to as UGC, which is user generated content, leveraging things, which we're going to actually talk about all the different types and how to get ideas and things in that regard. So we'll go ahead and move forward here. So really appreciate everyone being honest with that of their feedback, because as we're able to share, on where it is that we are, and go from there. But we'll move on to the third or fourth question. So, what types of social media content do you post most frequently? And feel free to select up to 2. So I'm going to engage with this one as well. And we have one final question. We're going to get into the agenda and to the actual curriculum here. So really, really appreciate everyone engaging with this. Okay, submit. Okay, we'll give this another 5-10 seconds, but appreciate everyone providing their feedback. And I suspect this is going to continue to, this is going to continue. Let's see here. Thank you, Lori. Educational, fun, creative post. Yeah, apologies, Lori, on that, on the challenges that you're having here with that, but appreciate you. I'll just quickly share Lori's here, so you can see this on my educational, fun, and creative post. So thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so we'll give this just another 2 seconds. And this is interesting. I love it. I actually really appreciate the fact that this is very diverse. And I will say this before we move on: we can all make a case for each of these being equally important. And with social, we're going to talk about this more in detail, but we've got to be diverse with that of what we're sharing and things in that regard. So let's go on just to the final question, and we'll get into the main purpose of today in terms of the content, but really, really appreciate that. What are your biggest goals? And let's select up to the 2 responses. Like, what are the most important things or the biggest goals in terms of your social media marketing, whether it's increasing brand awareness, driving traffic to the site, lead gen, building a community, enhancing customer engagement, and I may have missed one. So let's see here. Let me just address this one as well. We'll give this just another moment. But yeah, I see these once again continuing to toggle. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I mean, it's ultimately, and this to me makes a lot of sense, like the reason why we're doing this, the ultimate goal, like, knowing that it's like, we know like where the puck is, not where it is, but where it's going. The ultimate goal of what we're looking to achieve is generating leads and sales. I love this, because it's interesting when I have one-on-one conversations with groups or your peers throughout the country. Really, this is what our primary focus on is: building your brand and generating leads, which ultimately generate into sales. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but these things are very important as well. Building a community, driving traffic, and it's targeted traffic that's pre-positioned and that really has a good sentiment as to who you are, and also enhancing that of customer engagement. I mean, all these things are critically important. So thank you very much. All right, we're going to jump really quickly into today's agenda. So we're going to really start off with that of the significance and why, like the why of social for that of our business, our security business. We'll talk about creating diverse and engaging content, because I know one of the challenges that we hear all the time is, well, time is our worst enemy, and also I don't know what to post and what tools are going to help me so I can do more with less. We're going to talk about some of the more mid and advanced strategies from both organic as well as paid. And then we'll talk about measuring success and adapting to that of the trends. And as we have time, we'll go through Q&A. And as a reminder, if you have any Q&A, feel free to interject in the chat, and I will get to it as quickly as I can. If I don't call you out, if you'll just be patient with me, but really appreciate that, and we will go ahead and get started. So, let's talk about the why first of all. So the reason why here is social media itself is that of, it is critically important. It's like this device here, and I know it may be hard to see this, but this is my phone. This device has changed everything along with what's happened over these last few years. And the reality is, whether it's a LinkedIn or Facebook, or I know we're, even referencing a TikTok or Snapchat or wherever the case may be, depending upon who our customers are, it's the reality is our customers are on social. And where our customers are, we need to also be. And why? Because guess what our competitors are? And remember, even if it's our existing customers, we in fact do want to speak with them. According to Statista in 2024, there's nearly 5 billion individuals globally that are on social, and that number continues to grow. In terms of that, of some of the key benefits, keep in mind, like nearly 1 in 3, so on the average, groups that are using social media to help enhance that of our brand awareness, about a quarter of them are really increasing that of visibility, according to a social media trends report from Hootsuite. It's really important. The second reason is customer engagement. I know that was one of the answers in the questions that we had a few minutes ago. And remember, and please know, I am not speaking negatively about traditional media in terms of, maybe the yellow pages, which are virtually no longer existent, television, radio, billboards, etc. Some of these are not as they don't have that same level of engagement, because never before without social have you not been able to just, push content out, but also be able to engage or interact. And the whole point here, that point that I'm trying to make here, is social is meant to have that two-way engagement. It's not just one way. And I'll tell you what, not just reviews, but with social media, I see countless times individual or posts that get unanswered. And I'll tell you what, it's, even though it requires a tremendous amount of time, and for those of you that know me well, you know that I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I do my best to take time to respond to every single individual that has engaged with any post that I do or a company does. I take time to re-engage with that, not just to, whether I find it insightful or I want to celebrate it or I like it or what have you, or maybe I support it, but I also respond. And what that does is that personalizes me as well as our company. And I want the same for you. And I realize that, once again, because time is the worst enemy here, you may need to have members of your team that are helping you with that. But keep these things in mind. Two-way communication is the name of the game here. And we talked about this just a couple of minutes ago. Ultimately, leads and sales. This is really what it's all about. And according to Social Media Examiner, those of us that are employing social media as part of our overall marketing mix, half of us are reporting that it's helping to improve the sales. And of course, that's once again why all of us are spending time together today. In terms of, why a strong social media presence matters, keep in mind, step one is it helps us to differentiate. I mean, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, well, I guess in the chat, if you have if you have competitors in your market, enter one in the chat. Believe it or not, even we have competitors in the market. And my point being here is, with social, we want to make sure, I appreciate everyone saying 1. Thank you. And I mean, look, the reality is we all have competitors in the market, It is a way for us to really differentiate ourselves. And keep in mind, whether it's, nearly, 9 in 10, a little over 9 in 10 individuals, according to Forbes, consider online reviews and social media profiles when they're making decisions. And my point being here, and not to get too deep into this, but it's not necessarily just about having online reviews and social media profiles. But when we engage with those, number one, in our previous webinar that we did this past month, we did a masterclass on that of online reviews and referral programs and their significance. And if you haven't watched that, plug for that. I'd love for you to watch that and provide some feedback. But the thing is, on our social, and we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes about the different types of social. This is where it's really important to make sure that we're positioning ourselves as a real business that's powered by people that are passionate, that care, that are from the community for the community. And for those of us, because I know we have some individuals here that are on the vendor side as well, the same thing holds true. Whereas we may not have a geographic, narrow footprint, maybe our customers are all throughout the country. Perhaps our customers are nationwide. The key here is to personalize ourselves, showcase how active we are, showcase the volunteering that we're doing, things in this regard. And all of these are key factors that build us into, and I know that for those of you that have been in many of these webinars before, I purposely reference know, like, and trust. That is so important. We really are looking to build ourselves into someone that our prospects know, like, and trust, so that when they are ready, who are they going to think of? Who they know, like, and trust. And I'm not, by the way, when I'm pointing at myself, I'm pointing at each and every single one of us. I'm not necessarily just referencing myself here. So number two, and apparently I'm a mind reader here, is all about that know, like, and trust. I'm not going to spend too much time here. But it really is all about building your brand and building your authority. Because, look, all jokes aside, and this is where education comes into place, because it's not just about others liking us, because, and don't get me wrong, that's really important, but we also want to position ourselves as the authority. So when someone matriculates, remember, from out of market to in market, in other words, they're actively looking for what we do. Once again, they're coming to us. And that's what our goal is here. And social media is a piece of that overall puzzle, if that makes sense. So third is the adaptability and innovation. And, keep in mind, this is one of the reasons why we go to many association events. We recently had ESX, and prior to that, ISC West. I also was at CA, but we go to these conferences to network, but also to learn and to see as to where we are in terms of technology trends. And keep in mind, our existing customers and our prospects, they rely on us. So we need to make sure that we're positioning ourselves as being very innovative. And what we want to do is we want to be communicating. And by the way, remember, this is part of the education, part of the content that we're creating. And it's not necessarily just sharing information, but showcasing that we're at these events, whether they're webinar-based things or whether live in person. I'm telling you, these things are really important. And these things I'm sharing you from firsthand experience through ourselves, as well as through the groups that we work with throughout the entire country. So let's talk about now, we're going to shift now towards that of crafting that of our social media strategy. So this is where, if you haven't started taking notes, this is where we're going to want to start taking notes, because some of these things are going to okay, Dave, that does make sense, but you're going to come to a couple of things that are going to, be a little helpful here. So keep in mind, in terms of we always begin with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is we want to make sure that we are personalizing our content towards who our audience is. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, I only work with residential and SMB end users. Perhaps I only work with a Fortune 1000. Perhaps I only work with dealers and integrators nationwide. We always have to begin with the end in mind and know who our target audience is. In terms of that of, these buyer personas, a buyer persona, this is a characterization of that of who our ideal prospect is. So for example, because keep in mind, perhaps we work with commercial and residential end users. And as we know, even if, let's just say on the Resi and SMB, the solution that we're deploying is virtually exactly the same, the needs are very different. And what that means is we need to be speaking to these audiences very, very differently. We need to be talking about protect what matters most in terms of your home, your family, your loved ones, your prized possessions, versus that of mitigating risk at your business, mitigating loss, protecting your team, things in this regard. And when we get into some of the various commercial end user segments, like what's important to one is not necessarily important to other. So it's really important to understand not just where our prospects are, but what is important to them. These things are important, and that's why, and we don't have to be super fancy about developing elaborate buyer persona, but we need to make sure, especially if you are not the only one doing this and you have members of your team, and they may take for granted that the knowledge that you possess, want to make sure that we're not leaving those things to chance, if that makes sense. So in terms of defining that of our objectives, look, social media can really help with these things here. And I want to just quickly expand upon these things. They can really help with building your brand. And I'll tell you why this is important, because as I have conversations one-on-one with groups, or when I talk about building your brand, in great detail, I realize that none of us are like a Coke or a Pepsi or one of these big Fortune 1000 brands, so to speak, whereas they've got these huge marketing budgets that are all about building a brand. I'm not insinuating that. I would imagine here, let me ask in the chat, who of us here generates at least some of our business? And if you can type me in the chat, and I'm going to engage with this as well, how many of us generate business from word of mouth and referrals? And I'm going to do all caps me here, because a lot of our business comes from word of mouth and referrals here. And my point being here is, imagine, I really appreciate everyone engaging with us. I know a few of you are engaging with hosted panels, so not everyone's able to see that. But thank you, appreciate everyone. But where I'm going with this is, the problem with referrals and word of mouth is there may be ebb and flows. And the whole point here is, as we build our brands, what that does is that helps to amplify so that we generate even more word of mouth and referrals. That helps so that when your sales team is speaking with prospects, the prospects are more pre-positioned to buy, because they don't necessarily just know us by name. They don't necessarily just know like an SD marketing or insert that of your security company, but they know who you are and what you stand for. And that's why I'm saying, I'm not insinuating we need to spend big dollars on building your brand, but it needs to be a part of our overall strategy. Clearly, when we talk about lead gen, this goes without saying, but there are opportunities in some of the promotional type things that we do in social media. And remember, that needs to be a component or a piece of it. With the lead gen aspect of it, there are opportunities to be able to generate leads directly from social and have individuals that are coming for like maybe some type of special offer or what have you. I've got a few of the groups that we work with, whereas, most of us, I would imagine, we are all about, we're all about generating new prospects that we don't work with. But we have a few groups that we work with that are very well established in their area. They're very particular about that of the end users, the customers that they work with. And really, their main objective working with us is all a matter of customer engagement. Because remember, as a security company, and by the way, on the vendor side as well, we are not just like one-trick pony, so to speak. I hope that wasn't offensive to anyone. Sorry. My apologies if that was. Like, my point being here is, we don't just offer one service. We offer a myriad of services. And on the average, a customer comes in, and I'm going to make this number up, they may be working with like 1.3 or 1.4 or 1.5 or 2 out of 5 or 6 or 10 services that we offer. And I'm not insinuating that our customers are going to work with every single thing that we do, because they're going to be focused on the things that make sense for them and things in that regard. And where I'm going with this is, as you're engaging with them, you not only can continue to build your relationship with them, but as you have new things, as you have things that are appropriate to solve more challenges, who are they going to think of? Once again, who they know, like, and trust, which is us. And I say us, meaning each and every single one of you. Remember, in terms of the sales and conversions, especially those of us on the integrator side and on the vendor side, we've got longer sales cycles. And keep in mind, as we continue to enhance and build that relationship, it helps us to not only increase our conversions, but to shorten that of the sales cycle. And then I'll tell you what, remember, it's like your best prospects, your existing customer, and we want to make sure that we are providing high value support to each and every single one of them. So I won't spend too much time here, but really, as I was doing some research with the team here, we talked about like an actual SMART goals framework. So if you want, well, obviously you all will get a replay of this as well, but like in terms of having a framework for this, it's a in terms of this, we want to be very specific. We want to be measurable. We want to be attainable. What I mean by attainable is don't set a goal that's going to discourage you because you're not anywhere close to that. Because then what's going to happen is you're not going to follow through with it. And we want to make sure that things are relevant in terms of like what's our overall sales strategy, what's our overall goal, and then we want to make sure that we have specific time constraints built in that. So like an example of this would be, we want to increase our website traffic from social media by 25% over these next 6 months. And if we want to go even further, we want to be able to measure this so that we generate, let's say that we're generating one lead let's say we're generating, I'm just going to use these as an example. We can measure, on the average 6 leads a year that come from social media. Not only do we want to increase our traffic, but we want to double the amount of leads that we're generating from social media. We want to increase our percentage of engagement with existing customers. We want to grow our followers. I mean, all of these are things that we want to do to increase that of amplifying that of the good news in terms of what it is that we do and how we help others. So I won't spend too much time on this. These are a few, of course, of the bigger platforms that are relevant to what we do. But remember, it's I will say for us, and obviously we're on the vendor side. LinkedIn is where we get. It's the 80-20 rule with LinkedIn for us. For those of you that are B2B, whether you're on the dealer, integrator, or vendor side, LinkedIn is really huge for us. Facebook is really big. I mean, one of our good friends, Jake Vole and his burglar alarms online. I mean, he really is doing some great things. And my point being here is find where your customers are, spend time there, even if it's just a few minutes a month. And by the way, don't just be posting content. You've got to make sure that you're engaging with others. If you'll notice, and for those of you that engage with me a lot on social media, you'll see that for every time that I post, I probably am making 5 to 10, 5 to 15 comments on others' posts. Because remember, and I don't have a slide on this, but just as a FYI, when you post, typically you'll show up in the notifications on the LinkedIn once, but when you're commenting on others, you're going to show up multiple times in the notifications of others. And that's a little bit of a hint. But it's not just that. Be very mindful, be very genuine, be very kind to others, be helpful, be known as a resource in your communities. And I'll tell you what, I don't do it for that reason, but but one of the byproducts, and for those of you that are very active on social, I know you're nodding your head with me right now. I would love for us to be physically in person, but you know what? This allows us to do this without having to leave our offices. So, all those things are really, really important. Okay, let's get to content creation. So in terms of content creation, like the different types of content that we want to post. So number one is like educational content. We want to make sure that we have educational content that is reinforcing what we do, but it's educating others. And by the way, I'm going to walk through a number of these slides of the different types of content. It is not about just one. We have to do all of these things. All these things are important. All these different types of things, because we want to have a mix. And, look, remember, we have the attention span that's less than that of a goldfish, if that makes sense. So, we want to make sure that, we are really, how do I say it? We want to make sure that, we are sharing things that are really going to be always delivering value. In terms of next here is like behind the scenes information. Because here's the thing. Remember, the knowledge that we possess, do not take for granted that your customers, your prospects have that same knowledge. And it's not just that, because like, let's just say we do like a before and after, or we're showcasing like our team in the field. Or let's just say we are prepping some of the equipment before we are and I'm using the wrong terminology here, so I appreciate you all not laughing too hard at me. But we're getting things set up. And my point here is we can be killing a number of birds with one stone. Because what do we want to do? We want to be having an incredibly great customer experience. So it's like, why do we prep everything in our offices? Because if something is wrong, we want to be in and out of our customers' homes and businesses as quickly as possible. And the whole point of like testing things in advance, even though, I mean, I would imagine all of us do this now. And the whole point of this is this allows things to be pre-programmed so you can be in and out as quickly as possible. But as we talk about this, guess what? That's great content that we can be sharing and showcasing with others, because it's positioning how we genuinely care about our customers. We showcase how professional we are. It allows for our customers to get behind the curtain, so to speak, and to learn more about us. Because remember, it's all about know, like, and trust. We want to build that relationship. And this is where like social media allows for some of the help with these kinds of things. And by the way, think of, as we're talking about each of these topics, think about what are the education things that you can showcase. It could be as simple as creating a video about, okay, maybe you all are going to say, Dave, no, we don't want to do that, but I'll just use this as an example. It's like, this is how you change a battery in your, in that of your panel or what have you. And, or whatever the case may be. And I'm not saying that that's a prime example. Clearly, I am not a technician and I don't play one on TV either. But, so that's something that's, oh, awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, let me, well, thank you, Lori. I appreciate what you just shared. So you said that you have that pinned on your Facebook. I love that. All right. Well, look, I'm not going to say great minds think alike because you're the great mind here and I'm just holding up the rear, but I love that. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. So in terms of like, I talked a little earlier about UGC, and UGC stands for user generated content. And keep in mind, all of the content that we create, all the content that we push in our social does not necessarily have to come with us. One of the examples of things is as individuals are on your Facebook, on your Google business profile, as they're sharing a review, these are things that you can excerpt and you can have one piece of content be multiplied in multiple different things. And we can showcase this on our social. We can showcase this, of course, on our website and beyond. And keep in mind, like, these things are really, really important. It's we were once again speaking of like the reviews, good friends of mine, Lenny Guzman and John Bennett from Homes Security and from Loud Security, respectively. They were showcasing how they go about doing these things. They go above and beyond that. They don't just post things on social, they even post things in their office to be able to also help encourage that of other members of the team to have this in their culture, their DNA, to be asking for that of the reviews. So I'll tell you what, it is important to make sure that we are leveraging content that is shared. Like, let's just say, for example, I'll give another example that's not necessarily a testimonial or review. And ironically, this is something that Zoe and I were speaking about a little earlier today, about like questions that are asked of us. If someone asks a question, perhaps someone else may have that same question. Perhaps many others will have that same question. Why not post that question and answer it written, or pose that, turn on the camera, and it can be as simple as this, and answer that question in a video. The whole point here is like, I know I get asked all the time, I don't know what to speak about. I'm not sure as to what we should be doing and things in that regard. And here's where things come into play. So whether it's testimonials, reviews, I gave a couple of examples of other ideas. Use your user-generated content or other ideas to be able to share some of these things. Want to make sure we have fun. Like, remember, social media is meant to be social. It's meant to be fun. And I realize even for those of us that are dealing with the F1000, F500, meaning the Fortune, I'm not insinuating that we want to go off the ledge and be doing things that are distasteful, but know who your audience is and what's going to personalize you, what's going to humanize that of your business. Here's a couple of examples of pets. And I'll tell you what, I happen to have a pet at home, and I've got children, and not me and not any of us here, but there are many, not of us, but there are many others that almost treat their pets better than they treat their children. And my point being here is like, when you utilize that of various pets, garners that of attention and things in that regard. And that's the whole point, is we want to be fun. We want to be, we want to be creative, and it doesn't have to just only be education. Also, we talked about like how the community is really important. And as you are either, let's just say you're doing some charitable things, or, and I will say this, as we are giving back to others, whether it's volunteering with time, or whether you're, or whether you, whether you are volunteering with time, or perhaps whether you are, how do I say this, like whether you are donating dollars to help support things. Those things are really, really, really important to communicate. And I know we don't do these things for that reason. But I'll tell you what, the stronger we are as businesses, the stronger that, as we get this good news out, and that helps to amplify our brands, so that we generate more leads, we generate more revenue, that allows us to give back even more so. So I'll tell you what, don't feel bad about that. Anyone that feels bad about it, let's have a conversation. I'm going to convince you otherwise. By the way, question, when I'm moving my picture around, is that moving for you as well? If you can say a yes, someone could say yes or no, that would greatly appreciate it, or I would greatly appreciate that. And I'm talking about my my camera, what you can see. It doesn't move. Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, then I won't be moving it. It's not going to make a difference. Okay, got it. Okay, so you may not be able to see this, but appreciate Lauren, what you shared. I know this may be hard to see, but Lauren shared, we have an office dog, and I love to highlight more. He gets most of the engagement right now. When I do post about him, I love that. Yeah, it's I'll tell you what, it is just, it's, whether it's those of you that are connected with me, I shared that we have some new interns that have recently started, and unfortunately, like I think okay, I better be careful what I say, because this is being recorded. But I was going to say, the moment they started, they both got sick. They staggered getting sick, so we've got to get them back in the office here. But that's one of the posts. I had a picture of my daughter here in the chair. It looks like she's trying to take over. And of all of the social media posts that I've done over the last 12 months, that's one of the, I think, top 2 or 3 in terms of engagement, as well as that of the actual impressions and views. So yeah, whether it's children, whether it's pets, these are great things to be able to leverage. And make sure that you're not only giving back in your communities, or for those of us on the vendor side, to the industry. And I'll tell you what, once again, do not do this to generate new business. That will be a byproduct, because individual, it is all a matter of really giving back to others and things in that regard. But these things will be paid back in dividends. Next thing, and I won't spend too much time on this, but promotions and offers. In terms of promotions and offers, we want to make sure that whether we have some type of offer, maybe we want to give away a free camera with the new monitor system, or perhaps for a referral program, this is what it is. We want to sprinkle these things with, within there. That's why I'm saying, remember, we want to be diverse. With all the things I'm talking about, we want to do social posts like this and then some. Keep in mind our technology partners. We want to be leveraging that of our technology partners. And I'm not going to, I know we have a technology partner that's referenced here, but keep in mind, our technology partners create a fair amount of content. And look, not all technology partners are created equal in this regard, but what we want to do is, that's where some of the educational things come into play, and some of the latest trends in technology, some of the videos that they create, some of the graphics and content. These are things that we can leverage. So if you're not following that of your technology partners, make sure you're following them. Make sure that you're on their marketing emails, so that you have access to this. It's really, really important. And I'll share this really quickly, which is, we want to make sure that we are also invoking emotion. We want to be sharing stories. We want to inspire others. According to Harvard Business Review, if you have content that elicits that of a strong emotional response, it's twice as likely to be shared. And if you take a look at this image here, I happen to be a father of 2 beautiful children. And for those of us that are parents, we can all relate. When we see someone else's child, it's like, it just melts us. And you take a look at this picture here. this picture is like this young, this baby is like looking directly at us. And it's like my point being here is there's a lot of thought process that goes into these types of things and all that good stuff. And there are other ways to generate emotion and inspire others. Like, once again, those of you that follow me, you'll know that on occasion I get off into some rants and I share how blessed and how fortunate and how much gratitude I have. And I don't do it for the feedback, but I share it because I want to inspire others. Even if it's just one person out there that's having a hard day, and if I get them to smile and turn their day around, that to me, it's like I did my job. That to me, like, look, we're here to leave this place better than the way that we found it in every single situation. Sorry, I'm getting off into a tangent here. In terms of some of the types of various emotional content, we just talked about this, but like inspirational, we can share stories, not just of success, but stories. I mean, just stories that are going to inspire others. And keep in mind, a lot of the knowledge that we possess, don't take for granted that others possess that same knowledge. You want to share some of your personal things. And when I say personal, I don't mean necessarily just personal things about like family, but like some of the things here in business in terms of, whether it's milestones or whether it's, some things that we overcame with a customer, things in that regard. And we want to always be relatable because remember, when we are sharing things that others can relate to, and this is where, once again, sharing stories about our customers that have a challenge. And once again, this can be via video. This can be via like little mini case study things in this regard. So let's talk about how we really help to build engagement organically. So, when we take into consideration about building a strong community through the organic engagement, when we communicate posts that have that encourage interaction, according to social media today, it receives a 3.5 times more engagement than others that don't. And by the way, I'll tell you what, when the individuals that you follow on various social platforms, take a look at the key elements of the types of things that are in their content that encourage engagement. One of my good friends, Chad Cooper and Jason Wright, they're behind that of the CCTV fails, and I'm sure many of us are familiar with that. And it's like some of the posts that they submit are like literally a funny picture, pardon me, that they can all relate to, or that all of us can relate to, I should say. And it's like thoughts or, what do you think? And think it's like, my point being here is it is not, how do I say this? Like, it is not, we don't have to go into this huge production to be able to do things that are going to generate a lot of engagement here. In terms of some of the tips for interactivity, yes, we want to ask questions. Like, and this is where I just use the example of like the copy on that post. It's like thoughts with a question mark. We can have polls and surveys. You'll know during these webinars, we ask for polls and surveys, and we also talked about user-generated content because when we have our customers that are sharing their experiences, others can relate and engage with that too. Whether it's as simple as that, if they're liking or if they're commenting or sharing their thoughts about that as well. And this is where just once again, ask questions, do polls and surveys, use user-generated content. This is a really, really big one. And I talked about this briefly, but I wanted to just make an extra emphasis on this before. When individuals are messaging us on social media, when individuals are commenting on our posts, whether it's on our company page or our personal profiles, even for the reviews, and I know today's not about reviews, you have got to engage. If you don't engage, you are putting yourself in a really bad position, because what this is demonstrating is this is showcasing how much you care or may not care about individuals that are taking time out of their day to engage with you. You've got to be really timely. So this is like, and if you don't have this set up now, make sure that you have notifications for anywhere where there can be, where you or certain members of your team are receiving those notifications that are coming through, so that you can respond to them very, very timely. And by the way, yes, you can use AI-based tools to craft that of replies and things in that regard, but I'll tell you what, there's nothing like having things personalized. And I'm not telling you to use like tools like a Grammarly or, other tools that will help you to make sure that you're grammatically correct. Because I won't say, I am the best with these kinds of things, but we want to make sure that we're personalizing. It's like, don't just give a generic response. And I'm not saying that you can't templatize the types of response for a framework that you can ultimately slightly edit, but you want to personalize, because remember, people can sniff, people's BS radar are very, very high these days. And you do not want to be known as a group that is disingenuous. That's really, really important. And we want to encourage that conversation. Once again, as you're replying, have that open-ended conversation. Because remember, these are things that these are signals to help amplify the content. Because remember, I know we're going to talk about advertising here just for a couple of minutes here in a few minutes. But, these social platforms have turned into a pay for play. And where I'm going with this is to amplify what we're doing, we need to boost posts, or we need to spend a little bit of dollars on advertising. But when you're encouraging conversation, and when you've got not just a lot of likes or reposts or shares, but you've got comments and careful and long, thorough comments, that's going to help to be able to help amplify it. And these are signals to that of the social platforms and things in that regard. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining consistency. So here's the thing. We do not want to just post once and then all of a sudden, no, it's like we're just posting sporadically. We've got to be posting directly here. CoSchedule, shares this important stat here in terms of the fact that if you're posting consistently, you're seeing an increase in that of your engagement. But it's so important. And I'm not saying you have to post at the exact same time on the exact same days every single week, but you don't want to have weeks go without having posts and things in that regard. You want to be consistent and be diverse with what it is that we're doing. And I shared examples of types of content to be sharing. So, a content calendar is really important, because once again, many of us have challenges in terms of time is our worst enemy. Create a content calendar. Maybe you're spending a couple of hours at the beginning or the end of the month for the following month, and create that of all these various posts that you can use as scheduler, in terms of like a Hootsuite or a Social Pilot, a Buffer. I mean, there's a number of these tools that will help you to schedule in advance. A lot of the social platforms themselves have the advanced scheduler as well. But here's the thing, just once again, with these tools and with the things that I'm sharing with you, there should not be any excuse for any of us to not be posting. And I'll tell you what, it can even be as simple as doing selfies with that of friends, customers, colleagues, prospects when you're at events. Remember, it's social media. And I'm not saying that's all you want to do, but you want to be diverse. And that's showcasing how active you are and things in that regard. In terms of building that of a community look and feel, and some of these things we've shared already, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but look, events, webinars, and by the way, I won't get into too much of this, but when you do like webinars and live Q&A sessions on things that you take for granted, these things can be recorded like today. And then ultimately, as a result of today, we can have as little as 5 to 20, 30, 40 different shorts that are 30, 60, 90-second clips that can be social media content that can go out and things in that regard. But the whole point here is, and I started the conversation off talking about how as questions come in, others may have those same questions, and these are things that we can create high value content about, things in that regard. So, we talked about this as well, regardless as to whether it's positive or negative, that constructive feedback, we want to make sure that we're focused on that. Even with a constructive feedback, sometimes they may have the wrong company. Sometimes these are opportunities for you to apologize and get clarification and really remedy and fix the situation. And sometimes if you fix it, you can even have the individual update that of the review in terms of the stars and what their content on there. So don't shy away from focused on this negative feedback and things in that regard. Okay, so let's spend just a few minutes on that of social advertising. So I talked about this already, so I'll be really brief, but keep in mind, because social has turned into a pay for play, it is an opportunity to amplify. And keep in mind, we can be very targeted, because let's use Facebook as an example. With Facebook, I think we all would agree that perhaps we can, advertise to that of the local resi end user in our community, because we can target via zip code, we can target by a radius, we can target by state, by country, etc. But keep in mind, we can even target commercial end users within Facebook. With that of paid ads, we also have measurable results. And I'll tell you what, campaigns can be running just like that. Just like that, you can get in front of, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, depending upon who your audience is, hundreds of thousands of users. Just like that. Sorry, my snapping the finger's not working right now. But so in terms of the actual targeting itself, so I'll try and get through this really quickly here, but when we talk about demographics, we're talking about male, female, age, zip code, et cetera, these kinds of things. I'm not going to get into all of the detail, but I just want to share with you at a high level behavioral targeting. So this is based on the behaviors of users. So perhaps I would imagine, and maybe I'll ask just a question in the chat really quick, and I'll engage with this as well. If you have either said something while your phone is listening, or whether you have, let's say, done a search or you visited a website, all of a sudden you start seeing ads for that all over the place, type 1 in the chat if you've experienced that. And I'll engage with that as well. I experience that all the time because yes, they are listening. So I appreciate, awesome. Yeah, I appreciate all the ones. Thank you. And my point being here is these are opportunity for those of us as as business owners and as managers of our businesses. We can leverage these types of things from the behavioral. When we talk about custom and lookalike audiences, what this means is we can create custom audiences by, like, let's just say, for example, let's say we are working with, let's say, auto dealerships within a within a 4-county radius. We can upload our database of the decision makers in that to Facebook. I'm not going to get into all the minutia of this, but the database that we upload, the ones that are associated with a Facebook profile, that can be a custom audience. And oh, by the way, let's say we were to upload our customer list and we say to Facebook, because Facebook and all these other social platforms, I know I'm just referring to Facebook, but this holds true with many of the other social platforms as well. These social platforms know more about us than that of our spouses or significant others. And where I'm going with this is, as we upload this, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these other platforms, they analyze these users to say, okay, what do all these users have in common? And they can create lookalike audience. What I will say though, is do not start off with lookalike audiences, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can get yourself in big trouble and spend your budget very, very, very quickly. I did talk about this, but of course, we can literally target down to the zip code. With like a LinkedIn, it's going to be a little, you've got to be, because LinkedIn doesn't have as much traffic as like a Facebook, Instagram, etc. So the radius needs to be much larger. And then like interest. So like, for example, individuals that, are expressing interest in particular things, we can make sure that we're targeting according to that. So in terms of the types of creatives, so we can have image with copy, video with copy, carousel ad with copy, stories and reels. And the stories and reels, for those of you that are not familiar with this is going to be that of, creating like a 30 to 60 second short reel or a short a video that you can leverage. By the way, stories and reels are really, really helpful from the organic perspective. They are getting a lot of reach these days. And I'll finish with that of lead form ads, which we're going to actually talk about here more in just a sec. So in terms of the lead form ads, so this is when, imagine when you're scrolling through your social profile, you're engaging with I'm going to show you an example of this in just a moment. And you click through and you engage through this, rather than just driving someone to your website, you can have somebody engage with the actual lead form on the actual social platform. And the reason why these things are really helpful, remember, keep in mind, these social platforms, they want to keep us on that of their, on their platform as much as possible. So we want to make sure that it's effortless for that of the users. Keep in mind, it's got high conversion rates. It can be customized in terms of the questions that we're asking. And in terms of the notification, you get notified immediately, including that of having it integrated into your CRM. With Facebook specifically, we can have instant forms that have pre-filled fields, and we can have customizable form questions. Once again, it can integrate with that of the CRM tool. I want to show you an example of this. And I also want to say many thanks to our sponsor for today's webinar, which is Security CEU.
The security, fire, and life safety industry is facing a workforce crisis. Between trying to find and retain top talent, properly educating our employees, and an obvious generational knowledge gap to deal with, it can all be overwhelming. Enter securityceu.com, your portal to a revolutionary approach to learning, development, and continuing education. SecurityCEU.com simplifies the complex world of workforce development and compliance with an easy-to-navigate online interface, offering over 165 hours of CEU-approved technical content and 130 hours of essential skills material. Our vast library ensures you stay at the forefront of industry knowledge. Our courses are meticulously crafted with interactive exercises and real-world examples. And every course is approved for CEU, making license compliance a seamless task. Our user-friendly platform is designed with you in mind, providing a hassle-free experience for security professionals to get the knowledge and skills required in this ever-changing industry. And to top it all off, every course we offer can be white-labeled for your branding needs. Elevate your industry expertise and professional development with SecurityCEU.com, where compliance and continuing education converge effortlessly. Stay informed, stay compliant, and stay ahead.
Wonderful. Perfect. Appreciate everyone listening to that. So, and thank you again to Seymour Group that powers Security CEU. So if you need help with online training, please feel free to reach out to them. And my good friend Dan de Blasio is on today, and feel free to connect with he or Connie Moorhead at Seymour Group. Now, in terms of that of the Facebook lead ad, so I just have some screenshots here. So when you click on the button that says learn more or schedule an appointment as an example, a form pops up and it looks like this on your phone, and obviously on your computer would look similarly as well. And these forms fields are customizable. What we recommend and what we've seen is less is more. So you can ask for the full name, the email address, phone number. When you click continue, it is a requirement to just walk through that of the privacy policy. When you click submit, immediately that lead will go directly to you or whomever you designate, and it can even post to that of your CRM. So if you're not utilizing lead ads, I would highly recommend for you to consider them. And keep in mind, all the social platforms work with them. I will say one thing I'll point out really quickly about LinkedIn is with LinkedIn, specifically, LinkedIn will help, allows you to, like, all of the key data points that you entered into LinkedIn, i.e. like what's your industry, what's your job title, what's the company you belong to, how many employees, the list goes on and on. These are also advertising opportunities as well. In terms of Instagram, really, it's going to be very similar to that of Facebook, because keep in mind, Instagram is part of Facebook, so you can control it through the Facebook Ads Manager. It is important, like in terms of maximizing your ROI, and I just want to acknowledge, I know that we are at the top of the hour. I have just maybe a few more minutes. I'll try and zip through things as quickly as possible. For those of you that need to run, thank you very much. You'll have access to the replay if you'd like to watch the balance of this when you're able to, but I'll try and get through things really, really quickly. So in terms of that, of your, measuring that of an ROI with that of your smart budgeting, your bidding strategies, you want to make sure that you establish a budget. And if this is something that you're doing in-house as the first time, be modest with your budget, because keep in mind, you're going to make mistakes. And I mean that with all due respect. There are various types of bidding strategies. CPC means cost per click. And technically, my apologies, I made a typo here. This should be CPM, which is cost per milli or cost per thousand. So every time that, our ad is shown 1,000 times, we're agreeing to spending a certain particular dollar amount. And then in particular, like a CPA or CPL, cost per acquisition, cost per action, cost per lead. There are ways in some of the ad platforms to be able to go about doing things in that regard. So you want to find out what your budget is and what your bidding strategy, obviously all the things that we just talked about in terms of how we're going to target, because we do not want to just send this out to everyone, if that makes sense. In terms of some of the big KPIs for that of social is engagement. And keep in mind with the engagements, like how many likes, how many comments, how many shares are we getting? And by the way, one of the tricks of the trade is before you post an ad, post the ads organically. If you post 3, 4, 5, 6, if you submit 4, 5, 6 posts and you see as to which one is getting the more engagement, well, that's the one you should probably be utilizing in that of your advertising, because as you amplify it to the same kind of audience, you're going to generate the higher KPIs that you're looking for. reach and impressions. So the difference between reach and impressions are the number of times, once again, that your ads are being seen or your posts are being seen. The reach is the unique audience, if that makes sense. In terms of tracking the CTR, this is the click-through rate. So you want to be able to track what the engagement is with that of your ad, because these things are important. Remember, these social platforms, they want to make sure that users are finding what we're doing useful. So it's important to make sure that we have these KPIs as high as possible. So you want to make sure that you're tracking that. And keep in mind, ROAS stands for ROAS, which is your return on your ad spend. So it's like you spent $1, how many dollars are you generating in return? Ideally more than one, if that makes sense. And as you have like these tracking pixels here that we're talking about here, this is going to help you. So, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, these, along with Google Analytics and many other tracking mechanisms, these help to provide a 360-degree view of what it is that we're doing so that we can track that of the return on ad spend and things in that regard. It is no cost from the publishers themselves to add these data, having these pixels or having this analytics on your site. As we wrap up, I just want to announce that of our next webinar, which is from clicks to customers. So this next one's going to be a good one. And it's going to take place on July 25th at 10 o'clock Pacific, which is 1 o'clock Eastern time. And we're going to do a real deep dive into Google Ads pay-per-click and local service ads. And for those of you that may say, what is a local service ad? It is something that is coming. It's in some markets throughout our country, in our industry, but it is going to be coming in a very meaningful way. Google's making some big changes. And for those of you that are familiar with Google or local service ads, this is like the Google Guaranteed program. So it's a pay per lead. We're going to be talking about both these things and doing a deep dive. So I'd love for each of you, for those of you that are on live now, I'd love for you to register for this event. And I look forward to seeing you there. I know that we're over time, but if anyone has any questions, we'll leave this up on the screen here just a bit longer, because I think that's our final screen here. So if anyone has any final questions, we can address that. Otherwise, I'd like to thank each and every single one of you for spending a few minutes over an hour with us today. As I mentioned in the beginning, we don't take these things for granted, and these events are meant for you. So even if you have any constructive feedback, I'd love to hear that, because we want to make sure that we are providing as much value. Part of our mission is to educate our industry about the significance of marketing and how it can help get the good news out so we can all grow our businesses. So I really appreciate everyone sharing their look, I'll give you one of these right here. My daughter's going to say, Dad, you did that wrong. But I love each and every single one of you. We do all these for you. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you on the next event. Thank you so much.